This is a project that you've been passionate about for a number of years now and has had a lengthy gestation. Can you tell us something about the way that the production started and what interested you in taking it on in the first place?
Yeah, sorry. I read Uzo's novel in 2005, and I happened to be at Focused Features meeting about another project that I'd written called Sin Nombre, and I had Uzo's book in my hand just because I was reading it and I was really enjoying it. And an executive at Focus said, "I love that book. I want to make it." Sorry, I'm hearing myself when I speak. This is hasn't changed since the beginning of the movie. And I said, "I love that book. I really want to make it into a movie too." And so they made a deal. Does it help if I'm closer?
I'm not sure, but let's try it.
I adapted it in 2006, and obviously that was about 10 years ago now. And we ran into a lot of obstacles. It's not an easy film to make. It doesn't make a lot of financial sense if you read it. It's a very dark story, and I think Focus got cold feet when Johnny Mad Dog came out, and no one really didn't get a wide release. And so it sort of was on a shelf for a bit, until Red Crown came along and were brave enough to figure out how to finance it. And we made it last year.
Can I ask you, Uzo, firstly, a little bit about the book itself, and this, comes from your own experience of working in counselling situations with child soldiers, but also how you, or did you, and how you worked with Cary on the script, or did you just hand it over?
So the book came out of actually reading, mainly. I think when I was 14 years old, had the chance to read a Washington Post article about child soldiers in Sierra Leone and Liberia. Yeah, that echo is really weird. And I think, from there, it's a curiosity and a desire to understand another person's lived experience, and that's where the story came out of. Now, in terms of, it's a short story, then it develops into a novel, and then I think, around about 2006, 2007, it was optioned, or a few people came looking to option it, and then we ended up talking to Cary in Focus, and I was given a copy of Sin Nombre, and had the chance to watch that beautiful film. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it. It's an amazing film. And after finishing, I was like, this is a person who really understands, how to deal with these particular issues, difficult social issues in a creative medium. And so that's how, we said, Cary is the person who should make this film. And then in terms of the making of the film, I mean, Cary's a screenwriter, director, but whenever he had a question, he would call, and that, I think that's the way to work it. It's a different process, it's a different project, but if you have questions, he had my number.
Yeah, I remember before we left last year, we had a question about whether we should include that scene with the Commandant in Agu, because that was right when in the headlines there was a lot of persecution against homosexuals in Uganda. And we didn't want the movie to, in some way, create a bad image about homosexuals in Africa. But we sat down together and we discussed it at length, trying to figure out why, first of all, you told me why you wrote it in the book, but also why it should stay in the film adaptation version of it. And I can't remember everything you said that time, but we talked about things that are really happening, things that happen in combat situations, taking advantage of the children in more than one way, but also forcing your will and power on other people. And so we decided to keep it in. Right. But it's the kind of discussions we had over 10 years.
And at what stage did you involve Idris Elba in the project, and how did he approach tackling that kind of subject matter?
I spoke to Idris in the spring of 2012. Or was it 2013? 2013. We were shooting True Detective. God, I can't talk.
I know. It's really awful, guys. This microphone.
I'm not going to listen to myself. We were shooting True Detective. We were in the midst of production. I had a phone call with him just to see if he might be interested, gauge, whether he'd want to do a project like this. It's low budget, no money really, and he signed on the phone call. And in my first draft of the screenplay, I mainly focused on Agu and Straika. The Commandant was there, but he definitely wasn't as written into the story as he is in this version. So I beefed it up a little bit for Idris, and especially just since he's such a talented actor, to give him something to work with.
And Abraham, can I ask for you, this is a really challenging and tough kind of subject, and you really give an extraordinary performance, both in terms of the depth of the character and also in the context of these very challenging situations. What was it like for you coming onto this film, and how did you work with Cary to achieve your character?
I don't understand your question. Like how I was cast inside a movie.
Yeah, how were you cast, and then how did you work with Cary on the character?
How I cast inside the movie, it was on Friday, and I was in school playing football, and a white man was in our school watching us playing football, and he came to us that he needs a boy. Like he told us to come for audition, so we thought it was a football team. So after the audition, before he told us that it was a movie, so I was selected with some of my friends, and he told us to come for audition in one of the television stations in Ghana, and I was working hard for the role. That's why I got the role.
Very well deserved. And was it tough to play?
No, because I did some rehearsals with Cary and my acting coach, so I read the script and understood what I was going to do on set, so it was not difficult for me to do.
Well, sometimes the actor just doesn't remember the script, and then it's a little looser. Not that Idris did that, but I'm just talking about other examples, not mine. It was pretty scripted, even for the kids. There was some improvised scenes of non-dialogue, but most dialogue was pretty well scripted. That didn't mean that, like, especially a lot of the non-actors and the boys that take part in the SBU, it didn't mean there was paraphrasing going on. Uzo wrote the screenplay in a sort of Creole, but it was a very light Creole, like a more comprehensible Creole for North American and European readers. So when locals would speak in sort of like their version of Creole, sometimes it'd be, the words would get changed around a little bit. Did I bastardize your book? I would have done it in 2006 if it weren't, for outside circumstances. But I studied history and political science as an undergraduate, my university degree, and my interests lie sort of outside of the confines of the United States. So when I read the news, I usually read world news first. And so, Uzo talked about, films about issues. I don't like to call them issues, because for me, it's just the things that are important right now in our planet, or the things that sort of are an indication of where we're headed or the state we're at right now. And to me, immigration, when I did See Nombre in 2005, I think, when I wrote it, it's obviously very real still, especially in Europe. And the issue of child soldiers, as much as I was reading about it in '99, until I wrote it in 2006, is no less relevant. I mean, you see ISIS now bragging about their child soldiers. So they're just things to me that I find on many levels infuriating, especially if, where we're at, where we imagined we'd be in the 60s and 70s in terms of development as a planet and looking outwards, and yet we seem to be tearing ourselves asunder. I can let Uzo talk about the gun juice. That kind of comes off a part of the book that Uzo describes in terms of the use of drugs to manipulate and control the kids. And so he just sort of described a hallucinatory a moment in the story. And he also included a lot of allegories and tales about animals and transformation. So that's sort of my nod to that part of the book. And when I wrote this screenplay, it was still, photochemical filmmaking was sort of the norm at that time. So I sort of wrote it thinking I would do infrared or something like that when I made the film. And by the time we made it, I was shooting digital on Alexa. So I just approximated what color infrared would look like for that sequence and tried to keep the film as like 1970s photochemical looking as possible. Like the entire color treatment of the film was very much like a reversal stock, like Kodachrome.
Can I ask you, Cary, about the challenges of the production as well? It's an extraordinary, extraordinarily cinematic film in terms of its achievements, and it's clearly made in very challenging environments. So could you tell us a little bit about the making of?
The movie was easy. We had no problems the entire time. I got malaria about a week before we started shooting, which actually was pretty convenient because it meant I had another week to work on the screenplay before we actually started principal photography. There was a lot of challenges. Part of it was that for Uzo and I both, we were really petitioning to have the film shot in West Africa. And of course, there's a very vibrant film industry in Hollywood and even in Burkina Faso and Senegal. But the kind of infrastructure we needed for sort of more Western style of filmmaking wasn't really there. So it was a bit of trailblazing in terms of the production, and that had its challenges. Also, we were doing a war film, so we needed cooperation with the military. We needed to bring in ammunitions and special effects, which essentially is bomb-making materials into a peaceful country. We had some of our cast arrested because we have former combatants that were part of not only the consulting side of the film, but also taking part as actors. And we had young kids that were also cast out of Monrovia and Liberia, and when they were all bussing over to take part in the production, they got arrested in the Ivory Coast on suspicions of being mercenaries. And they got all their phones taken away. They just disappeared. It took us about 4 days to figure out where they were. So that happened. And so we had to cast actually out of extras for the guys that are in his unit. And that wasn't part of the plan. So I was having to rewrite the script as we went and write new characters in and write other characters out that weren't working. And just glad there wasn't a strike for screenwriters while we're doing it.
I don't know, but for me to work with Idris at first, it was hard for me to work with him, and I was shy of him. But getting to sometimes, he played football with us on set, so it became normal for me to work with him.
Football is the key to many things, especially in this country. Will you all join me in congratulating and thanking very much our filmmaking team?